Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Orion. I'm an account executive at Salesforce and a published game designer. I've been interested in game design for most of my life, but I've only been at it more formally during the last 5 or 6 years. Now, during that time, I really came to appreciate the potential of games to be used as a force for change. And it wasn't until I started offering up my time to share some ideas within Salesforce that I really noticed the untapped potential to influence the business with game design principles. So my goal today is to give you a new lens to bring back to use on the experiences you're helping to create, along with a few of the key tools of game design. But before we jump into that, I feel like it's really important for us all to align on exactly what a game is. We all have preconceived notions of a game, so we all need to first be on the same page with respect to exactly what a game is. So let's start off by using a few examples to break down a game into its most basic elements. Now, what about a puzzle? Do you think a puzzle is a game? If you do, why is it a game? If you don't, why isn't it a game? This is a picture of the largest commercially available puzzle in the world, with over 40,000 pieces. This thing is massive. I think it's 22 by 6 feet, and I think you have to be 14 or older to put this together. But it has a short-term objective of completing each image separately. And then there's the macro one of finishing the whole puzzle. And there's also a reward of the sense of accomplishment, being able to brag on Facebook about your puzzle friends, about what you did. But it still feels like it's missing something to be a game. I think that thing that's missing is this obstacle that's preventing you from achieving the goal. Because you can technically take years and years to put this together. And the only thing that would prevent you from doing the puzzle is your own self-motivation. So for it to be a game, there needs to be something external to you that's preventing you from achieving the objective. So what if we add something like time as an obstacle? And let's say you have 3 days to complete the puzzle instead of a lifetime. Now we're getting closer to what a game is. Another example is tic-tac-toe. That's definitely a game, right? Now I'm not so convinced, since it's a solved problem that results in a stalemate every time if both players know how to play. So if you recognize this scene, it's from War Games. So in the movie, they had a computer play against itself until it almost broke down to help teach it that some games aren't actually games at all. I think this example is definitely subjective, since if you don't know how to play, then it feels like a game. But if you do, then the only obstacle to you achieving the goal of 3 in a row is the other player not knowing how to play. So we started defining a few of the basic elements that kind of a game consists of: a goal, an obstacle, reward. Let's use one last very basic example to label all of these. So how about Chutes and Ladders? This is definitely a game. There's no tricks here. But for those who've never played, you simply flick the spinner for a random number, which is however many spaces you move. If you land on a good deed space, you get to move up this karmic ladder. If you land on a bad deed space, you slide down a slide and go back a number of spaces. It's all completely random with zero skill in the hopes of teaching a loose morality lesson. So I'm going to use this to break a game down into its most basic elements. And the first one is a goal. So what are the players trying to do? And how do they win? You need clearly stated goals. And the more immediate the feedback on if your goals are helping or hindering you to achieve those, the better. Now the goal here is to reach the top first, which is evident from the progression of the numbers and the reward sash at the top 100 space. The next thing a game needs is an obstacle. Now accomplishing the goal should not be easy. There needs to be something external to the player that's preventing them from achieving the goal. This restriction helps to force players to be creative in their solutions. And ideally, you can ramp the challenge to allow for different skill levels to achieve the goal. And the obstacle here is luck. It might seem like the obstacle is the slide, but that's not actually anything you have control over. So you flip the spinner, and whatever your number is, that randomness is the thing that's preventing you from winning. And it's the main reason the game loses its appeal as you play it more, because it doesn't allow for any sort of choice or creativity. And third is a reward. And there needs to be something the player actually wants or cares about as a reward. And both macro and micro rewards are ideal. And the reward can even be more motivating if it's tied to a cause, a group, or even a player extrinsic to the player. Now with the chutes and ladders, there are micro rewards of landing on a ladder and going up a bunch of spaces. And there's also a macro one, that sense of winning and learning a loose morality lesson. And it's not that compelling, but it's still there. Now there's one more that's optional, but almost always helps to keep the game more interesting and accessible. The surprise helps to have something about the game that players can't predict. It doesn't have to be random, just unexpected. The surprise can be related to the obstacle or the reward, and in some good designs, the goal. Now here the surprise is the spinner and is directly related to the obstacle. Now that we understand what a game is, as a goal, an obstacle, reward, surprise, let's use a real-world example. This is a photo of a traffic sign in Stockholm that says speed camera lottery. Now the sign shows the speed you're traveling at and gives you a thumbs up or down if you're under or over the limit. There's also a camera that takes photos of everyone's license, regardless of their speed. It was designed to take the money from the fines of speeders and enter everyone who drives below the limit into a lottery to win a portion of that money. It's really amazing. And the goal is clear: stay under the speed limit. The obstacle is the speed limit and the traffic laws, which they highlight with the sign. Now, what helped to make it a better experience was the addition of a reward at both the micro and macro level. The micro with the immediate positive feedback, the thumbs up, on how you're performing towards the goal, and then macro with the potential for a large financial reward, which incorporates the surprise element, also allowing for hope. So just imagine taking these ideas, this goal, obstacle, reward, and applying it to almost any situation, which is what I'm trying to say with game thinking. But before we jump into that, let's clarify exactly what gamification is. So gamification takes concepts from games and brings them into non-gaming scenarios. With game thinking, I'm saying there are no non-gaming experiences. The most everything can be viewed as a game. And once you view it as a game, take that game lens and apply it everywhere and decide if it's a good game. If not, how do you make it a better game? This even applies to things which in of themselves are not experiences, but do enable an experience, which can then be viewed as a game. And there's another benefit of reframing as a game, and that's the pre-existing associations we all have. You enter a situation already expecting it to be fun or interesting if it's labeled with game. And there's a quote from Jane McGonigal. She's a really well-known game researcher that sums it up really well. When framing an experience as a game, we tackle the challenges with more creativity, determination, and optimism, and are more likely to reach out to others for help. This is something she found to be true in her research of over 500,000 participants in her game, Super Better, that helps to enable people to view their personal goals and obstacles as a game. But let's take this lens and apply it to something as simple as crossing the street. This is something that is definitely a non-gaming experience. But based on the definition of a game that we laid out, I'd argue that this is even more of a game than the puzzle. I'm not saying it's a fun game, but definitely a game. It has a goal, it's to cross the street safely. There are obstacles, which are the traffic laws, and then there's a clearly visible timer counting down the time remaining you have to cross the street. And then there's a reward of getting to your destination on time or early. Now that we see it as a game, how do we take this lens and just make it a slightly more interesting experience? In Baltimore, they took the approach of adding hopscotch as an optional obstacle, introducing choice, which enables a fun experience like this guy's having. But maybe not the best idea since you have your eyes off the road, but still a step in the right direction. Something worth pointing out is that most design seeks to remove obstacles and makes things easier. And game design does the opposite. It looks to introduce obstacles, to make experiences challenging, but in an approachable and fun way. And sometimes you can't remove an obstacle, like in this example, you need the traffic laws. So at least make it meaningful and ramp the difficulty with options. This is something they did really well at the Walker Art Center in Minneapolis Sculpture Garden. They created a miniature golf installation and allowed the artists like full creative freedom, just go crazy. And there's one hole in particular that really caught my eye, and I think it's a great example of game design with the introduction of a new obstacle as an interactive medium. Now, what would normally be an activity of simply just putting a ball into a hole has evolved into a completely different experience here. Now, strangers can come up and play with the gnomes like a foosball table. Now, this example takes three of the most important tools that game designers use to craft memorable games and applies them brilliantly here to improve the experience. The first is to enable choice. And the people that come up to this have the option to either help or hinder the golfer. They have the choice of how they want to interact, as does the golfer, who can then transition to the gnomes. This is exactly what's missing from Chutes and Ladders. The second is to allow for connections. This example gives people the opportunity to connect with 8 total strangers and interact in a way they would never expect. Anything that enables a shared interactive experience really helps us to remove the label of stranger and offers an anchor point for connections going forward. The third is to add challenge. With this, not only does the challenge scale based on the number of people, but it applies to all players, each of whom are playing their own mini game. There's a lot more to explore with challenge and the rest. I'm going to dive into each separately. We all need to feel like we have control over our future, and that control comes from the perceived freedom of choice. But you need to find the right balance of options. Too many options leads to analysis paralysis. This is something Barry Schwartz describes really well in his book called The Paradox of Choice. Now, I was a big fan of the Choose Your Own Adventure series as a kid. They understood the power of limited choice to enable a really engaging experience. As you read through the book, you're given a series of options that can arc the story off into all sorts of directions, and then are guided to turn the page based on your decision. In a larger context, you're making a lot of choices by the end of the book, but you're never overwhelmed during the experience since each step is limited to a few choices. Now, as a real-world example, the Wall Street Journal subscription page is an example of a choice without a choice. You pick print only, digital only, or both. How much do you think the difference is in price between the three? Now, if you get classic print, it's $320 a month. Digital is $9 less per year, and both is only $8 more per year. Now, there's an obvious answer here. Not only does choice of print or digital anchor the value of the subscription, it confirms the value of getting both, creating a greater sense of satisfaction than if there was only one option. There's also the fear of anticipated regret, which this solves for here with limited options. I don't want to regret my decision of making the wrong choice or missing out on something. This fear of missing out is something that having too many choices will lead to. You'll start thinking more about what you didn't choose instead of what you did. You can take the same idea and apply it everywhere, giving employees, customers, or even your kids a choice without a choice. If you want to take out the trash now in 30 minutes or tomorrow at 6 a.m. Let's talk about connection now, which is how you can connect to both the experience and other people. And I think most importantly, you need to create opportunities for people to connect and uncover a personal level of understanding. When designing an experience or product, try to keep the player in mind. Does what you're creating foster social interaction? Does it enable opportunities to learn something new about someone or connect in a new way? Now, I'm sure everyone can tell me what this game is. Words with Friends. It's a great example of a game enabling connections. And the only thing they did differently than Scrabble is to seamlessly integrate with your social network. The game almost becomes an afterthought, and the main goal of the experience shifts to keeping in touch with friends and family. I'd argue that designing this element into the experience is the main reason it became so popular and why most people are still playing it after all these years. An example closer to home, I used to play poker professionally and can't think of a more perfect game. Though it can be very singular focused and cutthroat since it's a zero-sum game of winner takes all. One way the casinos provided an opportunity for connection is by creating a bad beat jackpot. So the idea is that in every hand, a small portion of the stakes goes towards fueling the jackpot. Then if any player loses with 4 of a kind or better, which is about a 1 in a million chance, the players involved in the hand win the majority of the jackpot while everyone else at the table gets a good payout. Then they even give everyone playing poker in the casino a smaller portion divided up evenly. And this is a picture of a table celebrating this. And the dealer doesn't look too happy, but he's definitely going to get tipped out. And this works on a lot of levels. It creates a draw to the casino, adding new players while also creating a sense of connection between all opponents in the game. Since we're all playing a cooperative macro game of the Bad Beat Jackpot, so many conversations and opportunities to connect with new people are enabled from this addition to the game. I was involved in a few, not the main part, but just a few being in the same room, and it's just a really amazing experience when the whole poker room erupts. And it leads to a lot of new ways to connect with these people who you normally be your opponents, they can quickly become your friends. And this leads to challenge. There's a mantra of game design that you should be more afraid of boring your players than challenging them. But you don't want to introduce too much challenge straight away, or you risk losing players' attention. Now, I'm sure a lot of people have played the game Risk. It's like a dudes on the board game of global domination. It's been around since the 50s. There's a more recent version that's a Risk Legacy. Now, it's a great example of how to ramp difficulty by expanded choice as you progress. Now, in Risk Legacy, the game evolves as you play it multiple times. You continue to unlock new content and mark up the board permanently with stickers and markers. Now, as soon as you open the box, there are sealed envelopes revealed under the lid with clearly laid out goals. There's also a few sealed boxes, and there's some hidden content as well. Some examples are, it says, open when one person wins 2 times, open when a player is eliminated. There's a lot of very basic, simple triggers for each. And what this allows for is new rules to be introduced gradually, along with new components. It's a really effective way to teach a complex game by slowly revealing new elements during play. You do this in the form of stickers and then marking up the game board. But just imagine doing something similar on the digital experience, or even at work with clearly laid out goals on sealed envelopes during meetings. Open when someone achieves a milestone and introduce a new element or reward. This is something digital games have been doing a long time. But Risk Legacy was really innovative to be the first iteration of this style into the analog world. Another personal example, I used to work as a line cook back in college, and it was a scene of controlled chaos during rush hour. But when I came to realize there was something special happening, when I was managing like 60 to 30 steaks on different temperatures for multiple orders on any given night, I was at this peak state where it was challenging enough that it required my full attention, but not too hard that I couldn't actually complete it. This is what the right balance of difficulty enables. Almost this meditative state where time disappears and leads to a real sense of happiness and satisfaction. And the key point here is that challenge enables mastery, which is something that drives everybody. It's the need to improve something you actually care about. When the experience is challenging, but not too hard or too easy, a just right state creates a feeling of flow. This is a term coined by a researcher named Csikszentmihalyi. During his TED Talk, he describes this as the true source of happiness that everyone is working towards. And as a lesson to anyone looking to find satisfaction in their work or lives, always move towards mastery. And I feel like these 3 C's, choice, connection, and challenge, are missing from too many experiences today. It feels like we're in a sort of age of easy, that there's too much instant gratification available. Netflix is making the viewing decisions for you. It's too easy to just swipe left or right. You can find anything you want on the internet from the palm of your hands. I believe we're craving more challenging and richer experiences, and games have been helping to satisfy these needs for a really long time now. Now we can take what games have taught us to help create more meaningful experiences by introducing obstacles in a compelling way. So my ask to you, look at an experience you're having, a project design you're working on, or even a team you work with, and view that experience as a game. Then define the goal, the obstacle, and reward, and look to make each more compelling by allowing for choice, enabling connections, and ramping challenge. Thank you.